so valuable, these 7 key methods. We're going to move right along to Elizabeth Greenwood from Australia. She's Director of Naturopathy, Australian natural therapist. She's a specialist in iridology, aromatherapy, medicinal bathing, energetics of herbs and foods. And she's going to be speaking to us about chronic allergies, food and meat, research and treatment solutions, and patient recovery. Thank you. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. So I'm going to talk to you today about food allergies and meat specifically. So here we go. So this slide here I prepared just as an overall view of my presentation to talk about the differences between the holistic paradigm and the scientific paradigm that we find ourselves in today. We're moving towards interpreting pathophysiology and a reliance on evidence base, even within naturopathy as well. And I stand on the shoulders of my presentation before me and we were talking about this and just reiterating these 2 points of view and how they can work together really well, but they are very different points of view and very different ways of thinking, essentially. So I'm using meat allergy as an example of how this actually works. So we've got, within the holistic consultation, we've got so many strengths. We do have a lot of limitations, and a lot of people focus on those limitations rather than our actual strengths. But we do have a lot of strengths, like with our focus on the constitution and focus on the tissue states. And I think my point is that we, because of our long consultations and our multi-systemic case-taking skills, we're in actually a really good position to be able to pick up on many unknown, unidentified, and therefore unresearched and undocumented disease states. And I'm very, very strong with that point of view. And I refer to the uncertainty principle, which was awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1932, which talks about the position and velocity of an object cannot be measured at the same time. And I think that what we do with naturopathy is we look at the nature of the disease within that individual, rather than just looking at the scientific evidence as to what's happening specifically on a cellular level. And I think that's a very strong point for us to take with us into the future, working alongside the scientific paradigm, of course, but staying strong in what we do and what we know best. So going a little bit deeper into that, when we're looking at chronic allergic presentations, they have a physical, mental, emotional, and also spiritual effect on the patient, the individual, but also on family and friends. The impact on lifestyle, the impact on food choices. There's so many different areas, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail shortly. Within all chronic allergies, you do have unpredictable acute reactions at times through those chronic allergies as well, as you would very well know. And these actually target weakened systems within the individual. So for example, people with a history or a predisposition towards asthma, their allergies and sensitivities will affect the lungs more so. People with a history of skin complaints, perhaps eczema as a child, their predominant weakened system will be the skin, and that will present through there. We've also got the pathways of elimination, which we've looked at just previously, within each person again, and that is very individual. Everybody's pathway of elimination is very different as to how effective it is in detoxifying many inflammatory mediators which are produced through chronic allergic disease. So unique to naturopathy, we have iridology, nail, tongue and pulse assessments, and these are age-old, very useful tools to determine an individual's innate constitution, their tissue states, their tissue weakness, their detoxification pathways, their immune sensitivities, and also their acute and chronic pathways of inflammation, as well as the impact of chronic oxidative stress on them as well. So we'll highlight the relevance of this holistic paradigm I just outlined within the example of mammalian meat or alpha-gal allergy. So can I have a show of hands, who has heard of mammalian meat allergy? my colleagues and a couple of other people. Okay, you're going to learn something here. Okay, so mammalian meat allergy is a multisystemic, unpredictable, severe allergic reaction to mammalian meat products, specifically a molecule found in mammals called alpha-gal. It was first discovered and reported in Australia. So what happens is a tick bites a bandicoot, that's a bandicoot. Now in other countries it's known that it bites other mammals, but what happens is a tick bites a mammal and receives some of the animal's alpha-gal molecule from ingestion through the blood, and that gets stuck in the tick's alimentary canal. And then when the tick bites a human, that gets spat into the human. So that triggers an immune reaction. And why it does in some people and not others is my theory, is that it is dependent on the individual's constitution, tissue states, health, pathways of elimination, so on and so forth. Science cannot yet explain why some people react and others do not. So every time that person then again eats mammalian meat, their immune system is triggered. So the reactions can be anywhere between 2 and 10 hours, and these after ingestion of meat. So this allergy actually throws a lot of knowledge about allergies that we have at the moment out. It is just a whole different paradigm for allergy. So in MMA, the allergic symptoms can vary significantly, from mild gastrointestinal symptoms to hives to breathing difficulties and some rare presentations of anaphylactic shock. The severity of the reactions can develop over time, but they've also been shown to reduce over time, again treating the individual in this case. So dependent on re-exposure to tick bites and foods, so if people get more tick bites then they become more allergic. And also if they keep eating foods and they're not sure what they're reacting to, then they keep getting that immune dysregulation within their body as well. So the reactions get worse. But there has been some cases that it's just shown to reduce over time. I'll talk about that in a minute. So much is still unknown about the nature of this illness through the scientific realm. So I'm postulating that individualised management considerations of holistic principles can be offered to assist in the reduction of symptomatic and severity of chronic MMA allergy. Dramatic pause. Yeah, that's not. Okay. So let's look at it a little bit closer here. So the actual molecule is galactose alpha-1,3-galactose, or as easily said, is alpha-gal. It's a mammalian oligosaccharide epitope, so carbohydrate molecule, produced in large amounts in non-primate mammals but not in humans, old world monkeys or apes. So people notice the reason this allergy was discovered is because adults over 30 years of age started presenting with a wide range of reactions to red meat on the Royal North Shore of Sydney, and they presented to the hospital there. It's a very unusual allergic presentation, as it's got a greater propensity to invoke anaphylactic reaction than other cross-reactive carbohydrate molecules. It also initiates an IgE reaction, even though it is a delayed reaction, anywhere between 2 and 10 hours. When it first was talked about, they thought it was an IgG reaction, but through research they can identify now it's an IgE reaction. So although anaphylaxis can occur to tick bites themselves, this is a different mechanism. That's the saliva that people react to with anaphylaxis. And also you might be questioning about Lyme disease as well. Lyme disease, as you know, is an infection. This is an immune-modulated allergy, so they're quite different, even though they are tick-related. So interestingly, recent research in the last couple of years has shown that specific blood types and also increased oxidative stress conditions are implicated in this evolving research. So these actually show the initial scientific backing for these holistic considerations that I'm going to talk about. So classically, MMA or alpha-gal chronic allergy can be commonly masked as a gluten or dairy intolerance. A lot of people don't think that they would be reacting to red meat, so they think, oh, I've just got celiac disease or some kind of reaction to a skin product, and it's not, it's actually red meat. So this is why I'm so pleased to be able to talk about this with you today to help spread the awareness of this new condition. So let's have a look at the prevalence here. This was a screenshot that I took in May this year, and people with alpha-gal are requested to join this map. So to track prevalence, it is a very much a self-regulated, self-awareness raising experience at the moment. Rarely does it occur in other countries other than Australia, America and some parts of Europe. However, as you can see, the numbers are there and they are on the rise. I'd like you to note that Professor Cheryl Van Noonen from Sydney, who first, I'll show you the research in a minute, but she first identified this. She's seen over 600 individuals with MMA after tick bites between 1985 and 2014, with most being since 2003. Now she diagnoses between 1 to 2 new patients every week. And the prevalence in Australia was thought to be 1 in 900 in 2013, and in 2014 it was 1 in 500. In the US, in 2015, they were aware of 1,000 individuals with MMA. Now it is in excess of 5,000 recorded cases. It is estimated to be the most common food allergen requiring adrenaline in adults, at 0.12%, with peanut allergy being 0.1%. Alpha-gal, the molecule, can now be detected in a blood test, which in some countries is subsidised, however some it's not, and it's still very expensive with most people not really knowing what it is or what to test for. Also, the level of alpha-gal in the blood is not actually indicative of the amount that somebody is going to react. People with high levels of alpha-gal might just have mild hives, whereas some people with low levels can have anaphylactic shock. How can science explain that? I'd like to postulate that it depends on the individual sensitivity, constitution, tissue states, eliminative pathways, all those parameters that we've looked at before. These are certain things that people have actually recorded reacting to. You can see there's a wide range there, even gelatin capsules as well. Okay, so identification of unknown allergies. So this is a little bit of a timeline of the research, starting with myself in 1996. So I actually developed anaphylactic shock to eating red meat and red meat products. I had reactions for 2 years before somebody identified what that was I was reacting to. I went to 13 different doctors, but because it wasn't in the research, they just put me in a too hard basket and gave me adrenaline and said, avoid whatever you think that you're reacting to. So that's why I had so many different reactions, because I didn't know what I was actually reacting to. So it's, as a health professional, which I graduated in 97, so that wasn't when I started studying it. As a health professional, I followed this research very closely, but one of the most profound things that I can't really go into today with too much time, but was the impact of having an unknown chronic with acute episode allergy to a food which most people didn't understand, most people thought I was making it up, and even the medical profession didn't get it. For 11 years before the first research came out about it. And so that's why I think as holistic practitioners you're in a prime position to pick up on diseases that haven't even been created yet, that haven't been discovered. And I want you to really stand strong in that. You know, your questioning skills, your diagnosis, your analysis, your documentation, all of that is extremely important in recognising diseases that have not been created or discovered and therefore documented. look at this research here. So there's a few bits and pieces there. So starting off with identification of the postulating a link between the tick bite and meat allergy. And then further down, they started recognising that it was specific IgE, and they recognised the molecule that people were starting to react to, purely because some drugs contain this as an excipient. Then they linked the sensitivity to gelatin in some mammalian meats as well. And I've got heaps of references for this, so you can have a look at this. Then they started to note different cases throughout the world, and unfortunate cases where people actually passed away when, for example, a gentleman went in for a heart valve transplant, and it was a porcine valve, and didn't know he had alpha-gal allergy and passed away right there, and the physicians didn't know what was going on either. In 2013, a single case of repeated tick bites with confirmed alpha-gal specific IgE analysis to yogurt and cheese. So it's meat and meat byproducts as well. Since 2014, there's mostly case reports and consolidation of research articles, as well as a couple of documentary and news articles coming out, so keep an eye out for those. So, what do we do about this? Patient recovery in chronic allergies has seen that an individual's reaction can increase or decrease over time. I think we're in a prime position to be able to support patients with this, with reducing this allergy, both acute episodes, chronic episodes, and sensitivity as well. So I'm grateful for the knowledge and insight that I've got as well. We're looking at individual vital force, tissue states, herbal, nutritional diet, emotional, different testing as well as avoidance. So included in that are all those aspects, but also the underlying disease states as well. There are no specific answers at this stage as to why it happens, and it is multi-systemic. It's a multi-systemic disorder as to why some people react to some things and not others, and also at different times as well. Different times of the year, people react worse. So documenting these symptoms and when they occur is extremely important. You can see here the latest update of how to prevent this through tick removal, as well as what to do when you're out wild crafting your herbal medicines. Just be very cautious now. Also, very much a patient-centered approach to what you're doing here. Yes? Before it's removed? Because with permethrin, they recommend to kill it right there and then, rather than remove it. They say not to remove it anymore. Yeah, they're updating. There's some websites and things right at the end that I've got, and they're really good resources for up-to-date information with how to manage ticks. Yeah. But the whole problem is the ticks eating back into the human, and they reckon that if it dies right there and then on you, it doesn't spit back into you. Okay. There you go. Okay, so this is quite a comprehensive list, but non-exhaustive. And so what I've done here is I've collated a lot of the multisystemic impacts on an individual's health from different chronic allergic conditions. I've incorporated the scientific parameters as well as the holistic considerations in there. All chronic allergies have an acute presentation at times, and what I'm interested in is recurrence and what happens with these inflammatory mediators once they've been produced by an allergic reaction. We're so focused in science as to what's happening right there and then at the acute time of an allergic reaction, but what happens afterwards? these inflammatory mediators get stuck in the blood and recirculated through the lymphatic system, and if they're not detoxified properly, they can cause systemic inflammation and therefore oxidative stress in the body. So much so that some of the research is coming out to prove a link between mastocytosis, which is an overproduction of mast cells produced in anaphylactic shock that gets stored in weakened tissue. Even dysmenorrhea has been linked to mastocytosis following anaphylactic shock. So stand strong with your principles, because the science is starting to prove what we already practice. Which is great. Yes, so also what's really interesting as well is the effects of the fear hormone, adrenaline. So when people go through chronic allergies, with acute presentations, they have to ingest a lot of adrenaline. That's the fear hormone. It does have positive and negative effects. Long term, in chronic allergies, it is linked to decreased digestive secretions, increased blood pressure and tachycardia. It's linked to spasmodic dysmenorrhea, nervous overstimulation and anxiety. And interestingly, a greater intensity of negative emotions. It's proven in science, that one. But more positively, it also shows improved long-term memory as well. So how to treat these? Again, a multi-systemic effect is so important. I think that we have so much to offer in chronic allergies. We're focusing on this multi-systemic effect, just taking a step back and seeing what that individual actually requires and treating them as the disease ebbs and flows. So how to do that? So we look at the lymphatic, we look at blood clearance, we look at tissue-specific sensitivities and overall health. We look at oxidation and oxidative stress. We look at the hypothalamic pituitary axis. We look at capillary integrity. That's extremely important when you've got a lot of post-allergy immune inflammatory mediators circulating around the body. They can get stuck in the lymphatic system, and people end up with leg edema, and the capillaries end up becoming very weak. So I'll talk about that with the remedies that I'll look at very shortly. We also look at specific herbs that can trigger, help with the vagus nerve as well. So I'd just like to comment on that we use bitters to increase mucous membrane secretions through the vagus nerve and activate the digestion. And systemic detoxifying effects in chronic illness, as well as demulcents, where they have an anti-inflammatory effect on mucous membranes and pacifying effect in worn-out tissue states. So in chronic allergy, we actually need to consider the congestion of phlegmatic conditions in the lymphatic system, but then we also have dry tissue states in the mucous membranes. So we really need to aim to resolve this humoral balance, and again that ebbs and flows within the individual, so we have to address that as we go. So the microcirculation is of extreme importance, so we'll get into the microcirculation very shortly and how that works. So here, this slide here is very important that the multi-systemic disorders, like chronic allergy, again, it's dependent on the individual and their specific weaknesses and strengths. So multi-systemic disorders require multi-systemic acting medicines, and that's what we do best. Herbal medicines provide tissue-specific as well as multi-target actions. We have respiratory tonics, we have dermal tonics, we have digestives, we have tissue-specific anti-inflammatory agents. So make use of those. So when we're looking at chronic allergy, these are the main actions required, the primary actions, and then we have secondary actions as well. So the primary actions are very targeting what's actually going on, targeting more the pathophysiology, and then the secondary actions are very supportive for that. I'll go into the herbal medicines and nutritionals next. I also am very interested in phytochemistry as well, and the effect of phytochemistry. So these are the main phytochemical groups that we would look at within treatment of these conditions. And also the energetics as well. These are very important for chronic allergies, especially unknown allergies with the anxiety and the fear aspect of that. I'm very big on different application methods as well, rather than just tablets or fluid extracts. We have topical applications, hydrotherapy, inhalations and infusions or decoctions, dependent on the individual as well. So, you know, it is up to you. It gives you that power back as the practitioner to like determine and use all your skills to determine what is best for that patient sitting in front of you at that particular time. If they have hives, put something on it. Chronic dosing in chronic conditions is actually at the lower end of the dose spectrum and used long term. So when we're looking at these herbs, you are looking at more chronic dosing long term, and that's a little bit trickier to study than the pharmacokinetics of herbs. It's a lot easier to study high dose specifics. But just a reminder that chronic dosing is low dose, long term. Okay, so here's a few herbs here. I'm just going to pick out a few aspects. So what I've done here is I've picked herbs that are very multi-system. They're very specific to chronic allergy and meat allergy. And I've actually used these myself, and I can now accidentally eat meat and not react. So I've actually cured myself from this allergy about 3-4 years ago. It's the first time I ate meat, and wait for it, but no, nothing happened. So, so that's good. So I can stand here and actually say you can recover from this allergy. So that's pretty cool. And using these herbs are good. So what they do is they strengthen the tissues, they strengthen the immune system, they're very anti-inflammatory. One of my key picks here is Crataegus. We use hawthorn a lot for the heart. Traditionally it's used for the heart and nervous system, and when you're looking at multisystemic conditions like this in chronic illness, the impact of circulation and the nervous system, they're interlinked very much. So this is a great herb for just to calm the whole system down. It's very nutritive, it's a really good tonic, and it's really gentle. And these herbs I've chosen as well because they are very low allergenic, low reactive. They're very safe in most people most of the time. I've put ephedra in there because it is the key multisystemic herb that does relate to adrenaline use. So ideally, if we could use that, that would be a great one to use, but we can't in Australia, unless we're Chinese medicine practitioners. So we're looking at Baikal Stolkap as well, and Dan Shen. So my focus here is not specifically just targeting the immune system, we're actually targeting the immune and its flow-on effect. And that's such an important thing to think of with any chronic disease, is the flow-on effect of inflammatory mediators. The oxidative stress, where is that impacting in this particular person? Is it impacting their brain? Is it impacting their cardiovascular system? Is it impacting their nervous system? These other herbs as well, we've got cat's claw, we've got our adaptogens there, our key adaptogens, but again, these are the more gentle adaptogens. They're blood building, they're immunomodulating, and they're specific for immune dysfunction, but they're also really good nutritives and excellent at calming the system down as well. One of my favourites, Scotchicola, is a really good strengthening herb, and people with any chronic disease, specifically chronic allergy, they're very depleted. Their vital force, their energy, their whole tissue, their structure, their connective tissue is not as strong as it could be. These are the secondary herbal medicines. They're very supportive. They're called, they're mostly diffusive herbal medicines and work with the microcirculation. So they get the other phytochemicals into the areas that you need, into the areas, the edema in the leg, and so on and so forth. So they're very strengthening and very, very nutritive, as well as being quite anti-inflammatory on that microcirculation level. Very, very good supportive herbs, these ones. And we've got the nutritionals as well. So bioflavonoids, key, anti-inflammatory, again, they work similar to the herbs. They're very anti-inflammatory, very strengthening. We've got vitamin A there, that's very good for the mucous membranes, and zinc, the fish oils. So fish oils are great. We look at it so often with the anti-inflammatory aspect, but if you look at it from the humoral aspect, it's very nurturing and nourishing for the dry tissue states as well as the nerves as well, to help replenish that myelin sheath in chronic, especially chronic allergy, when there's a lot of the adrenaline and nervous overstimulation occurring. Probiotics, a lot of research coming out on probiotics with allergies as well, non-specific with MMA as yet. And selenium to focus on the oxidative stress as well as its effect on the Th2 pathways in the body as well. Interestingly, it's been proven to suppress active anaphylactic reaction, selenium. So, more research required, obviously, but it's an evolving area. Again, these are low allergenic, well tolerated and suitable for long-term use. Lifestyle. Epsom salts baths are very, very important to help calm the person down, and they're very nurturing and nutritive, and they help with that microcirculation, lymphatic system, so many other reasons. Regular rest, we've looked at that already again this morning. Dry skin brushing, correct breathing or even singing is excellent, especially with an unknown allergy. It's important to help people get to speak up for themselves, so singing is a way to move that energy there. Reducing mould and damp and environmental toxins and environmental allergens is extremely important. You must consider the home and environment in all allergies. Reducing screen time and EMFs and the effect on the immune system and the constitution is still unknown. And also tick-free forest bathing. These resources and patient support areas have been fantastic. They're one of the best resources that I've found for your patients, but also for you as practitioners. All of them I've spoken to, and they're very happy for you to join them. They're great resources, really good community support and alternatives for people that have an allergy like this, that their family don't understand it, they don't understand it, and they can join these groups, and it's fantastic. So the Tiara website, that's actually a good resource there. Lots of specialists on that page, and there's a few Australian sites, but they're really good resources and good. They've got lots of pamphlets and patient information sheets as well. So I'm telling you about this so you can raise awareness as well. If you've got people with allergies that aren't getting results, then do consider this. There are a few cases in the UK, so you will see it over the next few years. So I'm just so grateful that I could talk to you about this and help you to raise awareness, so you've got a heads up. So I've got a few pages of references, if you're interested, I can send that to you. Hang on. Yeah, that's stuck on references. Okay. Oh, there we go. And there's a contact for me, so I'll just at the end there, that's me. And so if you want any of the references or information, or you're just interested in learning more about that, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.